Okay, so we have a quotation from his commentaries. By marriage, the husband and wife are one person in law. That is, the very being or legal existence of the woman is suspended during the marriage, or at least is incorporated and consolidated into that of the husband, under whose wing, protection, and cover she performs everything. Blackstone's commentaries summarize the principles by which English courts made their decisions, and that was known as common law. America's legal system is built on the same thing, and in the passage above, Blackstone defined the legal doctrine of coverture, by which a woman's legal identity merges into her husband's identity through marriage. And so now I ask that we consider these questions for the Blackstone. Number 5, if a woman owned property before marriage, whose property does it become once she is married? The husband's, exactly right. Number 6, if she sells some of her husband's property, on whose behalf is she doing so? She's doing so as his agent, right, as a representative of his household. Number 7, if a husband casts a ballot in a political election, whose rights should he be trying to protect by selecting a particular candidate? The household. So his wife, his children, everyone, thinking of them all together, right? Okay. English common law had 3 basic sources: history, English history, but it also respect for law, the Bible, and natural law. And all 3 of them agree that husbands served as heads of households, pater familias is the Latin term, and that wives were to submit to their husbands. Number 8, in what way might the wife's submission to her husband be a disadvantage to her?
She wants a divorce.
Why would she want a divorce? If he's not a good guy, right? Okay.
After he dies, on what she left with.
She would be entitled to a third of his estate.
She would lose control of her own property when she submits to him, right? So whatever she brings into the marriage basically becomes his.
So then if he wants to be a schmuck with how he's going to deal with that property that he acquires, then that's the problem, right? So any form of betrayal of that trust, it essentially involves trust, right? She's entrusting herself to his care. And in fact, that's probably a good definition of submission. I think sometimes we think submission is like, then you can lord it over me, which is the downside, and that's what this question gets at. But she's basically saying, I trust you to take care of me in the public sector, right?
Would that be the only advantage to it?
Yeah. Okay. Number 9, which phrase in Blackstone's commentary suggests that the husband should not take advantage? Exactly, right? And so I think that fits with the version B sort of account. And the question, I think, that makes it so difficult for a contemporary audience is we say, how protective will he be, right? To what degree will he faithfully discharge his duties as head of household in a manner which really serves her interests?
And so by giving up her maiden name, she's agreeing to this submission as well, right?
Sure, that would be a symbol of it. She enters his household. She leaves her father's household and enters her husband's household. Right. Exactly. Okay, so the idea here is that it helps us to get an understanding of the time period, and I think some of the elements from version B help us to get at that. Now I want to go to the next page, 7, and here's where we get more into the question of foreign relations through an interesting window of family property issues. Someone just mentioned what happens when the husband dies and so forth because of property. So that's kind of where this comes from. So we have a case, Martin versus Commonwealth, 1805, and here's what the judge says. Can we believe that a wife, for so respecting the general understanding of her husband as to submit her own opinions to his on a subject so all important as the American Revolution, should lose her own property and forfeit the inheritance of her children? Was she to be considered as criminal because she permitted her husband to elect his own and her place of residence, because she did not, in violation of her marriage vows, rebel against the will of her husband? Let me get into the context of this. During the American Revolution, the states confiscated the property of loyalists, persons who sided with England. One such law, enacted in Massachusetts, allowed the wife of a loyalist husband to retain her dower rights to 1/3 of her husband's estate, even if the state confiscated the remainder. However, the law required that the wife remain in America in order to maintain a claim to that property. And Anna Martin's husband, William, was a loyalist, and they fled together to Britain during the Revolution. 20 years later, their son, William Jr., returned to America to reclaim his family's confiscated property as heir of his mother's portion of the estate. So just to kind of clarify, the husband's supposed to lose his property because he becomes a loyalist. The wife, however, can't be blamed. Why? That principle of coverture suggests that she wasn't a rebel against the revolutionary state or loyalist. It's kind of awkward to talk about. She wasn't on the England side. She was simply moving to England because her husband said, let's take the family to England. And that's what you do when you're a wife in the 1700s, right? And so she should get her property, in which case then her son can inherit after she's dead. All right, so which do you think is more important? Just an abstract question. Loyalty to one's spouse or loyalty to one's nation? That could be your own weather. Yeah, it depends whether you're a woman or a man. It depends whether your spouse is good or bad. It depends whether your state, loyalty to the Nazi party or loyalty to your Jewish wife. I mean, there's a lot of circumstances, right? And so we could imagine a classical discussion where you try to get at some of those issues. If a woman is married to a loyalist, should the state also take her portion of their property away just because he rebels and flees? So number 11, what's fair? Should the state be able to confiscate her property? Or should this principle of coverture, which on the one hand limits her authority, right, could now, on the other hand, ironically, paradoxically, increase her ability to hold some property, right?
But does she retain any property rights when she submits to her husband in a marriage? Is there an acknowledgement that while she's saying, yes, I expect him to take care of me, okay, does she still maintain any kind of control, or is it a complete submission?
State laws are going to vary on that a little bit, and that's where it starts to shift, especially in the 1840s. But also, you use the word control again, which forbade me from answering the question the way I was about to. And that was part of it, is that it's a trust relationship. She's the beneficiary, and he's the trustee, right?
Sure.
So his job is to use that property for her benefit, much like a custodial arrangement with a minor, right? Okay. So when there's that principle, there ought to be a way that she can ensure that he's going to do so, right? And there are some court cases which try to get some of that. And it's in cases of just grossly obvious abuse, she would have some kind of mechanism.
Okay.
But it's difficult, right?
Because she couldn't file for a divorce because it was not completely heard.
Right. That was generally very much something. Yeah. Well, and initially divorce is required in act of Parliament under the principle that marriage is the foundation of society, and so the legislature of society ought to have a say before people just willy-nilly, break down the foundation of society. So that's kind of where they're coming from. It's very different than the individualist idea of freedom of contract, where any two people can just come together and go apart.
So how does this work with the son coming back to try to reclaim
Okay.
the estate? Because as the head of household, the decision was that we are loyalists and therefore we are moving.
Right.
So they should forfeit all of their land regardless, because the head of household made that decision.
Except, and here's maybe where we come back to, that he was a trustee.